So this started out, it was an older Acura. The clear coat on the car was peeling. I don't remember the exact reason for the initial stop. There was a reason that I pulled him over, and as a canine unit, you're always looking for more involved in the stop. And I do remember there was an Acura, and it had very cloudy headlights. Clear coat was peeling off of it. The inside of the car was horrendous. And for whatever reason, in talking to the person that was in the vehicle, I thought that there was a little bit more that was going on with the stop than the initial traffic reason that I had pulled him over. And so it was one where I was going to run my police canine on the outside of the vehicle. And I did. And this was my first dog. His name was Nico. And he did a fantastic alert. And this is actually, Nico was an active alert dog, which is bad news for car owners, because active alert means that they scratch to identify that they detect the odor of a controlled substance. And they scratch a lot, like until you stop them from scratching to indicate. And so we're going around the car, and he gets to the driver's side door, and it's a coupe, and he gets to the back side of the seam where odor would come from within the vehicle, and he starts scratching. And I'm like, okay, he detects the odor. So I'm like, good boy, take him back to the car. I'm like, all right, well, my dog indicated that there's the odor of controlled substance coming from within your vehicle. Would you like to tell me about anything that's in the vehicle? Oh, no, there's nothing in the car. I'm like, okay, go ahead and step out, have another officer there, and they sit with him while I search the vehicle. And so I get some gloves on, and I start looking at this vehicle, and there is just, it is the junkiest car you've ever seen in your life. I'm talking, especially in the backseat, layers of trash. Like it's one of those that I'm looking through, seeing anything, and I search, and I have my other guy that's there with me. I'm like, hey, can you look? He's like, I can't look. I'm like, well, I got this trained dog that can find things. Let me see if he can. Or maybe he can point me closer to the area of where the odor's coming from. And so I get Nico back out, and I'm like, all right, show me where it is, buddy. And so he goes right behind the driver's side seat and kind of puts his nose, paws a little bit. It's just a pile of trash. And so I start like sifting through envelopes and trash and receipts and all. I don't see anything. And I'm like, Nico, where is it? And he points again, pause again. That's the same area. I'm like, maybe he's wrong. Maybe there's nothing in the car. And so I'm like, I ask him one more time, I'm like, Nico, can you show me where it is? He doesn't know this command. Like, this is above and beyond his job requirements, right? It's like, your job is to actually find the stuff. I tell you that I smell it, you find it, right? This is above his job description. The dog just like looks at me side-eye. In my mind, this is how I recall it anyway. Like, what are you, an idiot? He reaches into the car. He grabs an envelope with his mouth. Once again, he is not trained to do this, right? He actively alerts to the odor, sits. That's what he's trained to do. He reaches into the car, grabs the envelope, because he knows that he sees my frustration. Not only that, does he see my frustration? He can smell my frustration, right? Because dogs have this amazing organ called a vomeronasal organ that they detect the hormones that you emit, right? So he knows that I'm frustrated, and he's like, man, you're kind of dumb. You're a little bit dense. And so he reaches in, grabs an envelope, pulls it out of the car. This envelope, and you got to understand, it's layers and layers and layers of trash. It's an empty envelope, it looks like. It's like one of those bank envelopes that has the little clear window on it, and there's nothing in it, it looks like. He grabs it, drops it at my feet, sits, and looks at me and is like, what else do you want me to do for you? You want me to write the report too? All right, so I put him away. I open up the envelope, and there's literally a gram inside of that envelope. And it was like one of those that the guy, I'm like, what about this? Like, it's the case of the century, right? This gram of, I think it was marijuana in this envelope that was buried amongst trash. You know, and crime of the century. I'm like, what about this? You didn't know about this? He's like, oh man, I forgot I was in there. And I'm like, he's probably telling the truth. Right? With the amount of trash, there is no way that he knew that it was in there. I think the guy got off with a warning, but it's one of those that it's amazing the capabilities of dogs and what they can do, especially when I'm not necessarily doing my part of the job, upholding my end of the bargain like I'm supposed to, and the dog goes above and beyond. It's always a great story. So much like what Nico did for me, Mattis did quite a few times as well. But there was this one in particular, and we're in the parking lot of a hotel that we sometimes have had issues with in the past. There was a whole drug dealing setup inside of the hotel that they had organized and had going, and so we had a report that they are actually dealing by this Chrysler 300 out by the west entrance of the hotel. So we pull up and we see the vehicle description, and I have Mattis with me. Police canine, incredible nose, incredible work. I'm like, all right, well, if they're dealing and they're saying that they're dealing out of their car, we'll be able to do something about it here. And it's like heavy stuff too, not just, basic marijuana or whatever. We're talking, I think they said that they were selling cocaine, heroin, and crack out of this hotel. And so we're like, okay, this could be potentially a good thing. And so I'm walking up, hey guys, what's going on? And you can see the little bit of surprise in their face, a little bit of nervousness. They don't take off running or anything like that. And I'm like, hey, is there anything in the car that shouldn't be in the car? No, there's nothing in the car. As a police officer, a car that's parked in a public parking lot where we got a call from the management that they might be doing something, there's no expectation of privacy for a car that's out there. So I can do a free air sniff of a vehicle that's in there. I couldn't just go in and say, hey, we're searching your room. People have Fourth Amendment rights. Can't do that. However, a car that's parked outside, there's no expectation of privacy as long as I'm not detaining them without reason. And if the car's parked there and they're not leaving anywhere, I can run my dog around it. And so I'm actually walking my dog up because we already believe that they're dealing drugs out of the vehicle and they're outside of the vehicle. It's not in motion. So I can go ahead and run my dog around the outside with no reason whatsoever outside of suspicion. And so I'm walking my dog up to do a search. And he knows that that's the reason. From the moment that we got out of the car, I put him on his flat collar, which tells him that we're going to go look for narcotics odors. Right? So if I put him on his harness, he knows he's going to do some tracking, maybe some apprehension work. If I put him on his flat collar, he knows that he's going to be looking for narcotic odor. And so I got him out on the flat collar, so he's already pulling like, okay, let's go look for the dope. And so we're walking towards the car, and this is the car that I want him to sniff, the Chrysler 300 that's sitting over there. And he starts taking a left turn towards the bushes. I'm like, Mattis, no. And he's never done this before. He is one, like there's some dogs, when you get them out before they work, you give them a potty break before they work. He is one that loves his job so much that wants to go work before he'll even go potty. Like it doesn't matter what it is. If it's a track that's going to take an hour and a half, he will not go potty before he works. And so he starts pulling towards the bushes, and I'm getting upset with my dog. I'm like, no, we're going to go search this car. And so I pull him back, and he's a big dog, and I'm not that big. And so he starts pulling me towards the bushes again. And I'm getting frustrated. And so I put my little, 150-pound body and try to pull him back over towards the car. And I start casting him towards the car. And he's like, no, I want to go to the bushes. And I'm like, okay, if he's in this mindset, I don't want to punish him. I want him to do something, and he's not listening. And yes, it's frustrating me. But at the same time, I don't want it for him to think that him doing his job is a bad thing. So if he needs to go potty, I'll let him go potty. Right? That's what I'm going to let him do. And so he starts pulling over towards the bushes, and I'm like, all right, go potty. And then he pulls me through the bushes. And so I'm like, now getting all scratched up. I'm like, why can't you just potty on this side of the bush? No one cares, right? He pulls me through the bush, and I'm standing in the middle of this, like, I'm not great with maybe a holly bush because I'm getting cut up a little bit. Right? It's got little pointy things on it. I'm not an arborist. I'm not sure exactly what kind of bush it was, but I didn't like being there. It was very thick shrubbery. I'm standing in the middle, and Mattis is like nosing around the backside. This is taking forever for him to like find a place to pee. It's just like he's never gonna pee. And then he goes into the corner of where the building and the bush meets. He puts his nose down, and he lays down and stares at a purple Crown Royal bag. Any law enforcement officers that are listening to this know that purple Crown Royal bags rarely contain Crown Royal. They typically are a housing place for narcotics. And so he's just found this bag that was tossed behind this bush, and I'm standing in the middle of the shrubbery, like bleeding from the arms. I reach over, grab the bag. Sure enough, inside the bag are scales, crack, all this other stuff that the dog, like, he just knew. He was like, yeah, I know that you want to look over there, but my nose kind of tells me it's over here. And so we ended up making a great case because my dog is awesome. And eventually I trusted my dog, but it took me a little while.
When you get a ticket, no matter where it happens, it's more important than ever to fight every one. And the perfect partner in that fight is the Ticket Clinic. When you get a ticket, you're facing costly insurance premium increases, points on your license, fines, risk of suspension, jail time, and they can help you avoid all of that. They've got offices in Florida and in California, but they can help you fight a ticket through their network of attorneys no matter where in the United States you get one. You can text a picture of your ticket to 305-305, or you can check them out now at the link in the description below. So thank them for their support of VINwiki, of CarTrek, and fight your ticket with the Ticket Clinic.